In Andrew Huberman's enlightening video, he explores the fascinating world of focus and productivity from a neuroscience perspective. He delves into the mechanics of our cognitive processes, demonstrating how this understanding can dramatically enhance our focus, thereby improving productivity.
So if people are feeling that they're not motivated or as motivated as they would like to be, there's a key step that people need to take, which is to start focusing on the craving aspect and dopamine. Because if you can make enough dopamine, you can motivate, you can actually crave moving through chat.
His insights are just a window into the vast potential of our minds, the first step in a path towards achieving greater personal and professional success. Through his commentary, Huberman urges us to realize our extraordinary capabilities that our minds have and harness this power effectively to achieve our aspirations. Through a deep exploration of neuroscience, Huberman demystifies the complex dynamics behind focus and productivity.
If you're very, very stressed, or you're very, very upset, two things happen. One, it's very hard to take your focus off whatever it is that's upsetting you. And if you don't know what's upsetting you, pure anxiety, but you don't know why, it's very hard to take your mind off of the feelings of anxiety.
He challenges us to scrutinize our habitual patterns and to comprehend the neurological mechanisms that drive our actions. His analysis, while complex, holds the key to unlocking our true potential. This understanding, he suggests, is merely the initial stage to laying the groundwork upon which we can build a more focused and productive existence. His insights are a testament to the transformative power of self-awareness, and they're a clear call to action.
And if you're somebody who hasn't invested a lot in any of these domains like academics or in health or in fitness, the important thing is to just get started and get consistent. I think that even if somebody is just walking 5 days a week consistently, just walking, right? It's the consistency is what pays off.
Huberman's video is a remarkable exposition of the concepts of focus and productivity. He provides invaluable insights drawn from neuroscience, offering an interpretation that transcends the academic sphere and becomes a sort of practical guide for personal growth. He prompts us to acknowledge the intricate functioning of our brains and the ways in which we can channel our energies more productively.
If we turn to the body and certain behaviors, let me talk about what those are, we are able to move ourselves along the autonomic continuum. And at that point, when we've done that successfully, and it's actually quite straightforward to do, we are able to think about things differently. We start to get a sense that the way we feel might not be the way we're going to feel forever. And it's in those shifts that we start to realize, my mind actually is not my best friend at these extremes.
His commentary is a starting point, the beginning of a transformative process that can greatly enhance our efficiency and improve our quality of life. A deep dive into the intricacies of focus and productivity, Huberman's video is an example of his dedication to demystifying the power of the human mind. His scientifically grounded approach serves as an essential guide.
But what's cool is that once you make these processes conscious, once you understand a little bit about how dopamine is released and how it changes our perspective and our behavior, then you can actually work with it. So it's one of the instances where knowledge of knowledge actually turns out to be a really useful tool.
Inspiring us to craft strategies that align with our unique cognitive constructs. He illuminates a novel path towards approaching tasks and responsibilities, a path that is just the inception of an enlightened understanding. His insights are a beacon of hope for those aiming to enhance their focus and amplify their productivity. Andrew Huberman provides an insightful and comprehensive dissection of focus and productivity in his latest video.
And it's incredible because if you think about sensation, perception, feeling, thought, and behavior, actually the way to control our nervous system and feel the way we want to feel is to run that backwards. Behavior, thoughts. So if you change your behavior, then generally your thoughts, your feelings, and your perceptions change.
Yeah.
And everyone tries to come at it from the other end, but he's figured out through whatever process led him there and incredible life circumstances, how to run it in this direction of behavior first.
He offers a refreshing perspective on the human mind's mechanisms and its immense potential. His work is a call to action, encouraging us to tap into our cognitive processes to foster a more productive life. His insights are the foundation for understanding the mind's vast capabilities and mental focus's significant role in realizing our goals. His commentary is the springboard for the process of self-discovery and personal growth, an initial step in a transformative exploration of our cognitive capacities.
What does your morning routine look like at the moment?
Morning routine is wake up. If I...
Round about what time?
I'm waking up these days around 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. I'm trying to go to sleep by about 10:30 p.m. Sometimes it's 11, sometimes it's 10. I wake up, and I have to be careful here because whenever I've described my routine in a little bit of detail, people always say, "I can't believe you don't go to the bathroom." And it's like, well, of course, so I want to be
my pants on,
exactly,
I put my
right
socks
foot,
on.
left foot. So I want to be clear. I take care of my basic functions. But when I wake up, I make a beeline for sunlight. So I'm going to get sunlight in my eyes. I'll probably go into the grave saying this, so forgive me if people have heard me say this before, but the single best thing you can do for your sleep, your energy, your mood, your wakefulness, your metabolism is to get natural light in your eyes early in the day. Don't wear sunglasses to do it. It takes about 10 minutes or so. If you live in a cloudy area, if you're in the UK in the winter, yes.
Or the summer,
maybe you resort to some artificial light as a replacement, but as much as one can, get bright, natural, and if not natural, artificial light in your eyes early in the day without sunglasses. Contacts and eyeglasses are fine. Don't try and do it through a window or windshield. It's going to take far too long. This sets in motion a huge number of different neurobiological and hormonal cascades that are good for you, reduces stress late at night, offsets cortisol, a million different things really that are good for you. So I get that. And yes, sometimes...
Is that a walk? Doing a little walk?
Ideally, that would be a walk, but sometimes we'll just go into the yard and have some coffee and soak in whatever sunlight through the clouds. If it's a cloudy, overcast day, it might be 20, 30 minutes. If it's a very bright day, it might just be a few minutes. The dopamine system is really important to understand. So we've talked about norepinephrine kind of gets you going. Acetylcholine is the spotlight of attention. The dopamine system is Mother Nature's hardwired ancient system in all animals, including humans, to put us on the right path. Now, a lot of people talk about dopamine as this thing that you get when you publish the book, or when you get the book deal, or when something wonderful happens, like your child's born, and that's true. But dopamine's main role is to be released anytime you achieve a milestone or you think you're on the right path. And when the dopamine system is tethered to a particular pattern of focus, remember duration, path, and outcome. So it's like, you sit down, maybe you don't get much text out, but then the next day you get 800 words of really solid text and you feel good. You're like, I'm into this. What does that dopamine system do? The dopamine system takes the norepinephrine, which is normally rate limiting. Like at some point, there's so much norepinephrine that you quit, and we can talk about that. It's actually the substrate for quitting. Dopamine can push that adrenaline back down, and give you more room, more space to do duration, path, and outcome work, highly focused work. And I'm making duration, path, outcome synonymous with highly focused work. Why would this happen? So let's think about an animal. Let's think about a deer that wakes up and is thirsty, and it's wandering out looking for water. That animal needs water. It doesn't know that it needs water. It experiences agitation. The same way that a baby feels agitation when it wants food, but it doesn't know it needs food. It just feels agitation and cries, and a caretaker comes, hopefully. That deer is now foraging for something that it needs. And let's say it smells water, because deer can actually do that, and arrives at a stream and takes a sip of water. There's dopamine release then that puts it on a path to maybe a larger lake or something of that sort, or to be able to go achieve food. So when we are on the right path and we hit a milestone, dopamine is released, and it tends to tighten our focus more for that activity. You can reframe the emotional component. You can unweight the emotional load. And this is why I think that sleep is so foundational. The great work of Matt Walker and the Stanford folks at the Stanford Sleep Clinic, and many others, of course, there are many great sleep scientists out there, have really unpacked this incredible period of our life we call sleep. What has not happened yet, and what is something that's very important to me and my lab's mission, and many other labs also, is we need a taxonomy, a naming system for waking states. For sleep, we have REM and slow wave sleep. We know what the early night is for. We know what the second half of the night is for. We go through our waking life talking about things like happiness, sadness, depression, stress, anxiety, and fear, but it's all pretty vague. And I think one of the exciting things that's going to happen in the next 10 years or so, hopefully sooner, is that we're really going to start to understand what is creative work, what is focus, what is conversation, what is bonding, and really understand those things at a biological and psychological level, to the point where we can also, I don't really like the word hack, but that we will be able to pull apart the different components and really understand, maybe we should, I'm making this up, so please don't take this as a recommendation, but maybe we should all be focused on activities that increase our, acetylcholine early in the day, and then we should gradually be turning that off. We all hear don't drink caffeine past 4 p.m., it messes with your sleep. Well, maybe there are things that we should be doing, for our waking states. And so one of the things that excites me now is that because of the unfortunate events of 2020, most people now are tuned into the fact that they have a brain and a body. They're very much connected. This is why drugs of abuse and why alcoholism and some process addictions, which are behavioral addictions, are so dangerous, because a lot of those drugs of abuse are dopamine. So it becomes this cyclical loop where there's no other behavior that can evoke the same level of release.
Right.
In fact, I sort of define addiction as a progressive narrowing of the things that bring you pleasure. And I say that because it really is the way that the dopamine system works. Normally, the dopamine system is designed to be generic. It's designed to get me to do lots of things, social interactions, work, exercise, all those things. Just like the stress system is designed to get me out of bed in the morning, a cortisol pulse is what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's also what led me to pursue a career in science out of fear initially, and eventually pleasure. So the dopamine system is tethered to those states of focus. And it's what Mother Nature designed so that the neural plasticity would occur and you would want to continue those behaviors again in the future. That deer needs to know and remember and create a memory, not just of where that stream is, but the process of, when I feel that agitation, I'm going to get up and go down this particular path.
Right.
And so people think of the dopamine system as this kind of like catch-all for reward. Oh, you get likes on Instagram and it makes you feel good. That's not really how it works. And the important thing to understand is when you start getting a convergence of norepinephrine, so that level of agitation, duration path outcome, acetylcholine, and dopamine, now you're starting to wire in the behaviors that make people really good at certain things. Now, in a functional view of this, so not addiction, what this means is that for any of us, success in any endeavor is very closely related to how much focus we can bring to that endeavor. And the reward system, you start to realize, is entirely internal. No one's coming along and cramming dopamine in your ear or dripping it in your brain. It's all internal. I think that understanding that pain and pleasure are in this really dynamic balance can also help us, which in the following way. Any pain that you feel, the longer day, the less sleep, the kind of agony that things aren't working, that power outlet doesn't work, or the internet is slow, whatever it is, the amount of pleasure that you will eventually experience is directly related, to how much pain you experience. So we know this from actually what nowadays would be considered quite barbaric and unethical experiments, where they would give people electrical shocks and they would measure their response. And then they'd say, we're going to increase it. Eventually they get to the point where a shock that was previously very painful actually evokes a sense of pleasure. Now, you couldn't do these experiments anymore. These are not the experiments I do in my lab. These are older experiments. But for instance, and this has been discussed in scientific research papers, giving somebody a 10-minute ice bath, for instance, or even a 3-minute ice bath, or a 1-minute ice bath is quite painful. But there was a study from the University of Prague, European Journal of Physiology, showed that after a painful ice bath stimulus, the amount of dopamine release goes up for 2.5 hours to 250% above baseline. And that's not because the ice bath itself evokes dopamine release. A lot of people think, cold water evokes dopamine release. No, pain evokes dopamine release after the pain is over. Yesterday, I tweaked my back because I do this stupid thing every few years, the same stupid thing, and it's really painful. And then you just remember all the ways in which you can't move around. I was like standing up this morning, I'm like, and just walking is so painful. As the pain has started to dissipate, you get a little bit of a high. right? You get a little bit of a euphoria. That's dopamine because of the degree of pain that you experienced previously predicts how much pleasure. So when you start a company down in the dregs and you're shoveling again, that's beautiful because that means that the win that you achieve is going to be as good or greater than the one you had previously, in your case with Quest. So it is very hard to control the mind with the mind. And I think a simple rule that people can adopt is when your mind is not where you want it to be, look to your body. Use the body to shift the mind. It's a simple equation. It's sometimes hard to do because thoughts can be so all-encompassing. But when your mind is not where you want it to be, if you don't feel as happy or you're obsessing, you need to go to a mechanical system in the body, because if you do that, you'll shift the chemicals that are released in your brain in a way that will allow you to regain control of the steering wheel. So there are a couple things that can do that immediately. The most basic one and the simplest one is going to be with respiration, with breathing. So breathing and the neurons that control breathing are so interesting because they are constantly working. They work reflexively all the time. They're working right now. If you're live and you're listening to this, they're working. But unlike a lot of aspects of our brain-body connection, we can grab a hold of it immediately and start tinkering with it. Like I can't say right now, hey, start digesting faster, Andrew, or tell my intestines, hey, slow down digestion, or I can't make my heart rate speed up just by telling it to, but I can slow down or speed up my breathing if I want to. So it lies at this bridge between the conscious and the unconscious mind. And I don't say this from any point or stance of philosophy. This is physiology. So if your mind is not where you want it to be, whether or not you're trying to sleep or work or focus or anything, I'm a big fan of this physiological sigh, which was discovered by physiologists in the 1930s. It's a double inhale through the nose and a long exhale that follows. The exhale can be done through the mouth or through the nose. If you're one of these people who can't breathe through your nose, you could do this all through your mouth. So it's just to inhale and then inhale again, even if you're just sneaking in a little bit more air, and then long exhale. The physiological sigh is known to physiologists and neuroscientists as a way to offload a lot of what's called carbon dioxide, and it immediately produces a heightened sense of calm or a reduced sense of stress and alertness.